I see the world as a visitor from Mars might. So does Kilgore Trout. Kilgore Trout tried to fall asleep in a movie theater in New York City. It was much cheaper than a night in a hotel. Trout had never done it before, but he knew sleeping in movie houses was the sort of thing really dirty old men did. The movie theater where Trout sat showed nothing but dirty movies. Music was soothing. Phantasms of a young man and a young woman sucked harmlessly on one another's soft apertures on the silver screen. And Trout made up a new novel while he sat there. It was about an earthling astronaut who arrived on a planet where all the animal and plant life had been killed by pollution, except for humanoids. The humanoids ate food made from petroleum and coal. They asked Don if dirty movies were a problem on Earth too, and Don said yes. They asked him if the movies were really dirty, and Don replied, as dirty as movies could get. This was a challenge to the humanoids, who were sure their dirty movies could beat anything on Earth. So everybody piled into air-cushioned vehicles, and they floated to a dirty movie house downtown. So the theater went dark and the curtains opened. Then the main feature began. It was about a male and a female and their 2 children and their cat. They ate steadily for an hour and a half. The camera rarely strayed more than a foot from their glistening lips and their bobbing Adam's apples. Then the father put the cat on the table so that he could take part in the orgy too. After a while, the actors couldn't eat anymore. They were so stuffed that they were goggle-eyed. They could hardly move. They said they didn't think they could eat again for a week, and so on. The audience went wild. All my books can be interpreted as ethnography, as I was turned into a wide-eyed traveler by the University of Chicago. As an anthropologist, I learned to stand outside of my own society, and people have said that I am like a Martian visiting the Earth. I was trained to take this attitude when I looked at societies and considered them, and it was easy for me to stand outside my own culture. I've discovered that many people are totally incapable of doing this. It's a parlor trick completely beyond them, and they assume that their culture is so immutable that it's like their skin, that my asking them to stand outside of their culture is like asking them to stand outside their skin. "Where am I?" said Billy Pilgrim, "bound for a time warp which will get us to Tralfamadore in hours rather than centuries. How did I get here? It would take another Earthling to explain it to you. Earthlings are the great explainers, explaining why this event is structured as it is, telling how other events may be achieved or avoided. I am a Tralfamadorian, seeing all time as you might see a stretch of the Rocky Mountains. All time is all time. It does not change. It does not lend itself to warnings or explanations. The bulk of my work was written on Cape Cod, where I lived from 1950 until 1970, and that, in fact, probably was a shank of my creative life, as Mark Twain's creative life was pretty much over by the time he was 56, and I think it's a normal experience for American writers to have done most of their work by then. And I would have been quite content to have created what I did by 1970 when I finally left Cape Cod. I used to walk on the great salt marshes there, and geese would fly up ahead of me, and I would come home from a 4-hour walk feeling wonderful, feeling very healthy and happy, but unchanged. I think it was the deepest sort of sleep, really. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you now because I never stopped dawdling like an 8-year-old on a spring morning on his way to school. Anything can make me stop and look and wonder and sometimes learn. I'm a very happy man. Thank you. There on the Cape, I would indeed talk to myself, and I have stopped that. I don't know quite why. Afraid of somebody hearing me do it and taking me to the crazy house, I guess. But as a younger man, I did try out all the speeches, and indeed tried out sentences just to hear what they sounded like and whether they were easily spoken. Cat's cradle. See the cat's cradle. See where the nice pussy cat sleeps. Meow, meow. He must have surprised himself when he made a cat's cradle out of the string. It reminded him of his own childhood and did something he'd never done before. He tried to play with me. And then he sang, "Rock-a-bye, Catsy, in the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. If the bough breaks, the cradle will fall. Down will come cradle, Catsy and all." Rock-a-bye, Catsy, in the treetop.
Rock-a-bye, Catsy, in the treetop.
When the wind blows, the cradle will rock.
Blows, the cradle will rock.
If the bough breaks, the cradle will fall.
Cradle will fall, and down will come Catsy.
Down will come Catsy, cradle and all.